All right. Well, welcome again to our Family Life podcast, something that we are super excited about. We've done it for about 6 months now, once a month on average. Just talking about life. We don't have all the answers. It's kind of our tagline. We don't have all the answers, but we definitely are better together. And on that light, we're going to be talking about something that is very important to me because at the time we're recording this, I'm about 12 hours away from a road trip to Walt Disney World with 4 kids that are very excited about going to Mickey Mouse's house and seeing Elsa and Anna and singing Frozen the whole way, I'm sure. So I'm excited. I get to host this podcast, and we have a couple guests. We have Virgil Svensson, and Virgil there is, I like to jokingly say, he's the reason that we have to put up with Joey, Pastor Joey. But no, we are very thankful for just him being a part of our family at our campus, and he's a father of 2 grown men. And the father of our campus pastor, Joey Svensson. So there you go. And he's a Clemson fan, so
yes.
And we also have Jennifer Williamson, and y'all probably all know, but just in case you don't, she is the our campus children's ministry director. She wears a lot more hats than just that, but she really just she does make our children's ministry go, and she's kind of the woman behind the wheel that keeps it going. So we're thankful for her and excited about what she has to say. She has a bunch of kids at home too, or not two, but and she's got what? How old are your kids, Jennifer?
12, 15, and 17.
12, 15, or 17. So there's a spread there, and yeah. So without further ado, let's get started. Like I said, we are talking about the topic of road trips. A lot of you listening probably are. You do have one planned for this summer. Maybe it's to go to see relatives. Maybe it's to go on vacation. But you'll probably spend a lot of time at some point in the car with your kids. And so even though that's a lighthearted topic, we want to spend some time unpacking it and really trying to investigate, hey, how do we make the most of that time? It's time that you are forced to be together as a family, and how do we capitalize on that? So we have a few questions to begin and to start things off. And so first question I'm going to send over to Jennifer. Jennifer, some folks can't wait to go on a road trip. Others dread it. How do you feel about road trips with your kids? How did you feel about them when they were young? And then now, how do you feel about them now? Do you get excited about them?
I do. I've actually always loved road trips. We have always lived really far from family, and so we've had a lot of road trips. We lived in Atlanta and took our kids to New Orleans to see my parents, and I've road tripped to Connecticut to see my sister, and then we have Greenville. We go to Greenville all the time to see my mother-in-law, so in Atlanta sometimes. So we're always on the road in the summer and at holidays. And honestly, I love it. I know some people do dread it. They feel like, oh my goodness, it's the hours and hours in the car, little kids and all the needs of little kids. But I always looked forward to it, and I felt like it was a time where the whole rest of the world was just going to be okay without us. And we were like going to be in our little cocoon. And well, first of all, let me say I'm a very idealistic person too. So the ladies out there that know me will be like, yeah, pretty much Jennifer. So I have high ideals and dreams for my family, as as all of us do. And I always felt like a road trip was going to be a time where we were going to be together whether we liked it or not, so we might as well just find some things that could draw us together instead of like separate us in the car. So I obviously have 3 kids, and we used to have a sedan. We didn't have a van, we had a 4-door sedan, and I can remember all 3 seats side by side in the back seat, and then Mark and myself in the front. And those are some of my favorite days. And my kids say too, I asked them about it a little bit this week, if they liked that or if it was just me. You know, now that they're old enough, I can say, was it just me or did we all have fun? And they liked it. My oldest daughter said she always felt like she was camping. I'd give each of them a backpack before we left, or their backpack, you know, and I would say, fill it with your stuff, have fun, make sure you have, and I would, you know, the teacher and me would come out and I would say, make sure you have this kind of activity, you know, stuffed animals, some little snacks, or I would pack it if they were super tiny little snacks for them. Webkins were big when my kids were little, so they loved Webkins. They would play with each other across the back seat. They had Barbies, they had Legos. Did not do well in the car, but Thomas the Tank did. And I would make sure they had stuff to write, stuff to read, you know, kind of all the different categories. And so my daughter says she felt like with her pillows and her little backpack and all the stuff that she brought from home, that she was kind of camping in the back seat. And I think they all had fun together and played together. So, you know, that kind of made sure they had something to do. And of course I would supervise and make sure they had appropriate things, not crayon that was going to melt or Legos that were going to get lost or whatever. So within reason, they kind of packed themselves. And I always had good snacks and tried to be realistic about if we were going to need to stop, you know, depending on their ages. I can remember stopping and, you know, for like nursing breaks, which I will have to do maybe on the way to Disney. Andy has a baby. And, you know, you got to plan all that stuff in because it's going to happen whether you like it or not. So be realistic, but also look at it. I looked at it as a time when we could draw closer. And as you know, when they're that little, they're going to always be talking together and talking to mom and dad. But as they get older, you have the option as a parent. Are you going to let them, you know, put on their own personal music or phone or watch their own little tablet movie or whatever? You have choices. And it's not all bad, but it's not all good either. I mean, you kind of have to weigh it and decide if you want 5 different people doing 5 different things, or if y'all can listen, for instance, to like an audiobook together. I always got those from the library, and I got a selection because you don't know what you're in the mood for, or what everybody's in the mood for. So I kind of took the avenue of packing heavy for the car. I really would. I would pack heavy. I had options, you know, lots of options for the audio thing, for the toys, for snacks, and then, you know, variety for the trip. We could stop here or we could stop here, and this is what it would look like. So I planned pretty well, and I looked at it as an adventure and a time to be together. I loved it. I took too long to answer that. Sorry.
No, it's fine. Yeah. Oh, it's fine. I like what you said about pre-planning because in my marriage, I'm not the pre-planner. That's Miranda's territory. But I've noticed that, you know, after being married to her for 12 years now and having kids for at least 9 of those years, like I release control over to her in that area, and she really does a good job. And so I think that if you know, maybe a married couple is listening to this, that one is the planner and one isn't, you know, giving responsibility of that pre-planning of all those hours in the car to the one that is gifted in that area is pretty important. So I love that. That's awesome. That's awesome. Pre-planning. Something I should do more often, but
you got Miranda.
Yeah, that's true. Thank you, God. So Virgil, you obviously, like we said, have raised 2 grown men. You have how many grandkids?
I've got 6. 4 here in Charleston and 2 in Florida.
So 6 grandkids. What is the longest road trip that you've taken, either with your kids or with your grandkids? And do you have like a kind of a funny story that goes along with that? Kind of a highlight from maybe one of those trips?
Well, let's see. The longest trip with my 2 boys was up to Pennsylvania.
Nice.
And they were pretty little. I think they were 1 and 3. Or they may have been 3 and 5, because kind of forget when it's been that long.
They were little.
I had a Pontiac Grand Prix, and you didn't have to have seat belts back then. So I built a little platform in the back. You know, the bench seat. I made a little platform with hinged legs, and we put a mattress back there, and
wow.
That was kind of wild. You couldn't do that now.
No.
But, and then I've taken the grandkids here. We take them to a trip to Disney World when they turn 5 years old. So that's a pretty good trip.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the number one thing that stands out of my mind, I tell you, this might not be the answer you're looking for, but I think it's important. We were taking Jared and Joey to Disney World, and I think they were 3 and 5, and they were kind of boisterous and lots of energy and all this stuff. But
really, wow, that doesn't surprise us.
What a surprise! You know, just a normal cutting up and fighting and all the stuff that goes on. And you can't have that for an entire trip to Disney World.
That's the truth.
I said, boys, look, we can't have this. So, you know, the next time it happens, I'll maybe give you one more warning, and then when it happens again, I'm going to pull the car over, and somebody's going to get a spanking. So I'm sure they were back there like, yeah, right. He's on the interstate. The Disney World, there's no place to pull over. He's not going to pull over. So after a warning, I pulled over, and I don't remember which one it was that got the spanking. Probably Jared, being the oldest. But I didn't have another problem with him the rest of the trip. I mean, you know, normal stuff, but not the fighting and the loud and all that. So that kind of stands out that, you know, I know things are different now. We don't do as much spanking and stuff, but back then it really did work. It wasn't something that I overly used, but especially on a road trip and a long one, you've just got to have some discipline, you know, some quiet. But I like what Jennifer said about planning. You got to plan. Because if you don't have a plan, those kids are going to come up with their own plan.
Mm-hmm.
You know, yeah. So you got to have stuff for them to do and be entertained and all that. I totally agree. Plan.
Yeah, and I like you know, how you stuck to your word. A lot of times, like even outside of the car, I'm guilty of it. Me and Miranda are guilty of it. Yeah. You know, we'll kind of do those empty threats where it's either an unrealistic you know, consequence, or it's a realistic consequence that we don't stick to. And so I think that, you know, just with you saying that, you know, and us going to Disney World literally tomorrow, it actually, you know, kind of inspired me to go home and talk to Miranda and be like, okay, so where are our lines that we wrong? And then what's the consequence that we're going to do? And just talking about specifically for the 8 hours that we're on our way to Orlando, you know, just pre-planning even the discipline to kind of keep control. Because you're right. I mean, the kids are going to take control.
Too. I was very guilty of empty threats.
Mm-hmm.
So, but I knew this time I had to follow through. I had to.
Yeah.
And it really turned out to be, I think, Holy Spirit led, because they were like little angels. They were really good the rest of the way.
Nice. So following through that discipline, that's good.
Yeah.
Jennifer, do you have a memory, or have you ever had an unrealistic expectation for how smooth the trip was going to go, and how did you handle that?
Well, absolutely. Like I said before, I am very idealistic. Like, I love my family, and I want for it to look a certain way, and for certain things to happen. And my kid, definitely one of the biggest things is how my kids treat each other. I mean, you know, they're older, like I said now, but for their whole lives, I have wanted them to be loving to one another, be kind, be generous, you know, forgive quickly, all the things that we want, not even as believers and people who aren't even believers. We all want the same thing. We want love and we want peace. We want it for ourselves and our household and our kids. So, I mean, I think that a lot of people can identify with that. Well, how you go about getting that, you know, I mean, Virgil, like you said, I mean, there was a line drawn that was like too much, and so you dealt with it in a way that showed your authority, in a way that, you know, you and Barb had decided and kind of set the boys in line and all that. And whether people spank or not, I think that it's important that whatever you do to get your kid to I don't want to say exert authority, but like to show them that that's enough, and there needs to be a certain level of
whatever works for the children.
Yeah, whatever works for the kids. You know, I think I've kind of gotten on track. You said unrealistic, so my expectations were very high, and the thing is that they're always going to do exactly what you're describing, Virgil. I mean, they are going to fight. I have 3 children. They're sitting like seat in the back seat, and they're like 2.5 years apart. come on. I mean, they're going to fight.
Yeah.
And so with me, it's like it took me a long time to go, okay, my children are not going to get along for 7 hours to Atlanta or 8. You know, when they're like under 7 or something, you're stopping every 2 hours. You know, it's like 8 hours to Atlanta.
Yeah.
And what are we going to do when that happens? So I think it kind of starts with that. I think we're all saying the same thing. They're going to fight. What are you going to do?
Mm-hmm.
So I used to be super idealistic and I wasn't prepared. And then finally I kind of got some ideas and reminded myself what's realistic that it was going to happen. What are we going to do when it happens? One thing that I did, I don't know if it was a complete success, but on one trip it worked pretty well. I had read it somewhere, and I'll tell you right now with the internet and Pinterest and all the different blogging and all that, you're going to find some ideas online. And in fact, Andy, I'm going to post tomorrow a link to some good ideas that I saw online, like collected in a blog. I thought they were great. And I'm going to post it after you've left for Disney.
Yeah, thanks.
But I was kind of looking last week and I found a site that I thought was pretty good. So I'll post that on our Family Life site tomorrow. But so in the meantime, I'd gotten this idea, and it was to get a roll of dimes and to give one to each 3 of my kids. And I don't remember how much is in a roll of dimes. It might have been $5. Might have been 10. It probably wasn't 10. It was probably $5 for each of my little kids. And if they could keep that without losing any, they could spend that in New Orleans when we got there. And that would be kind of fun for them at the dollar store or whatever.
Yeah.
And but if they did certain things, that we kind of had them outlined, you know, didn't listen when mom and dad told you to do something, provoked a fight with your sibling, something like that. Like we had specific things, so decide if you want to do that, decide what they are for your family. And they would lose a dime. I would turn around and I would just say, I won't say any names, okay? I would say, okay, it's a dime for you two guys. And I would lay down all the rules. It's so important to communicate. Lay down all the rules before you go, because you need that structure. And then you can have the love and the grace and all stuff on top of it. But if you don't have communication about a structure, like they don't understand when they're going to lose a dime, then everybody's unhappy. Yeah. Now, you know, that may or may not work. Some people might think that's punitive and, you know, always taking something. And I was well aware of that because I had one child that was constantly pushing. I mean, that child, she or he or she would, I mean, rather lose half of those dimes than you know, comply happily, you know, right away, the happy way, that kind of thing. Would rather lose half her dimes, so her or his dimes. So, you know, that's their choice, and I don't think I did it on every trip because I didn't want to, because then it turns into like who has the most times, who has the least times. What does that mean? You know, does that mean their little hearts because they always lose their dimes or whatever? So, like I said, there's no perfect solution, but I do remember it working well on one trip to New Orleans, and when we got there, went to the dollar store. They had some money to spend, and it kind of kept them. It was a little reminder, like right on the spot, that they're going to lose something right then. It wasn't a bunch of empty threats from the front seat. They were going to like lose something. And I'm not beyond Virgil reaching back and smacking a knee or so. You know, I mean, it's like, come on. Yeah. So there's all kinds of different ways, and I felt like they got positive reinforcement too, because hey, they got like $5 a dime. That's like.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's a lot. So that's positive, too, if they kept him. It was kind of up to them whether they had some money to spend or not. So.
That's real good.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, like you talking about how, you know, both of y'all kind of said, like, expect the fact that they're going to hit their limit and the kids are going to be bad. Miranda tells a story. This is total sidetrack, but Miranda tells a story when they were growing up that her older brother was very quiet in the back of the car for hours on end, and so you know something was up. And they found out later that he had taped a sign to the back of the window, facing out the back of the car, that says, "Help! I've been kidnapped."
Oh my goodness! I'm surprised it didn't get pulled over.
And nobody ever pulled him over, so they were, you know, passing cars for hours.
That's bad news.
Yeah, hilarious story though. Hilarious. Virgil, is there anything that you wish you had not done with your kids on the road trip? Kind of a weird question, but does anything come to mind?
Yeah, me and Barbara talked about that. I think the best answer for that was that I really regret yelling at him so much because it doesn't do any good. That's why it's important to have a plan and have a something you're going to do immediately for discipline, like Jennifer said, structure, but the yelling doesn't do any good. In a couple of more minutes, they're going to be doing the same thing again, and it's just very negative and just a lot of noise. It made me unhappy, Barbara unhappy, the kids unhappy.
Mm-hmm.
No yelling. I'm really sorry I did a lot of that.
Yeah, definitely. I think I kind of revert to that all too often.
Yeah.
I guess, I don't know if it's, I mean, we have 4 kids, so there's like a kid acting up, and then there's noise over here, and then another kid acting up, and so the easy, cheap way out is for you to just kind of react with louder noise.
It's what dads do.
Yeah.
And moms.
Yeah. It's not always the best case. It's more often than not the best thing to do. So that's very good advice. Well, you guys, I want to give you guys a couple minutes to basically along the topic, just kind of if you want to encourage some parents, or if you want to kind of say your 2 cents, 2 minutes of your 2 cents, anything to do with the topic. So why don't we start with Jennifer?
Okay.
To encourage parents. Well, I think we've definitely covered make a plan before you go. One of you make a plan before you go. You've got some hours to take up, and you need to be prepared. And I would say I would encourage you to have a great attitude about the trip. It's time that God has given you as an opportunity as a parent with your family. And, I feel, I don't know anybody who has ever said that a road trip is like their, worst childhood memory. Most times road trips are really fun. I mean, don't they get special food? I mean, I'm telling you, I would celebrate that road trip. I would buy special snacks I didn't usually buy, and give them out every so often. I kind of knew, again, I plan everything. I kind of knew when I was giving them out, and and I'll tell you what, one of my favorite things about road trips is learning. I mean, our kids learn so much from listening to us talk to each other, from talking about the travel itself, watching the mile markers. My children were fascinated that you could count the miles like that's how far the road was going, and the things that you could tell from those mile markers and the signs and approaching the city, what that looks like. I mean, they learned a lot about kind of life, life things like traveling, driving, things that we're going to need in the future. And I have to admit, I'm kind of, I wouldn't say, let's see, instead of being anti-GPS, I'm for road maps. I am for road maps because I feel like it helps us, it helps us to kind of, like if you open an atlas, you can kind of see where you're going, look at the distance, instead of just telling GPS, and then you don't have any sense of how you're getting there. Looking at a map, I think, is still a beautiful thing. And we went to Washington with our kids 2 years ago. Obviously, 2 years ago they were preteen and teen. It's perfect time for that trip, I'm telling you. We before we ever left, we went over the atlas with them. All along the way, we were tracking it, showing where we were going, showing where the mountains were going to be. I mean, they were so excited and enthusiastic about the trip, just anticipating all the things that we were going to see when we were driving, looking at the map, seeing the mountains. We went out of our way to go up 81 or whatever through the Smokies and then go over, and to see the size of the cities, and to see how close we were coming to Greenville, where grandmother is, and stuff like that. I mean, I just felt like it helped them a lot doing that. So I would say take that time to sort of educate your kids on things that are on your mind and your heart as a parent. Everybody's individual, not everybody's like me. So, and I am kind of wired up as a teacher anyway. So I know that everybody's not like that. I'm aware of that. But nevertheless, we do have, we have our kids to train up and to raise up and impart, wisdom and experience too. And a car trip is an excellent time to do that. In fact, we would choose, as I got older, we would choose podcasts that were kind of light but still a lot of wisdom in them. We would just choose, and I'll just kind of leave it at that. I mean, everybody has their own favorites and stuff, what seems appropriate that the kids can understand at their age and all that. And we would, I don't know if I call it slip it in between the music, but I would have in mind kind of a couple that I might want to listen to on the way up there for hours and hours. I might say, well, this one's 20 minutes or 30 minutes, and we'll listen to some music, maybe an audiobook or something, and this would be a good one to put in if everybody's kind of tired of the music. And I feel like our kids learned through those. And no, they did not always like it. No, they were like, oh, put on, so-and-so, let's listen. But just because kids are always listening, they learn whether they want to or not. And hey, if you're listening to a lot of their stuff for a lot of the trip, there's no reason you can't put on. I mean, you are in charge as the parent. And yeah, we do love our kids and we want to cater them and make it all exciting and fun. But I mean, you can put on a podcast they can understand, and just by the fact that they're in the car doing their little magnet board or whatever, they're taking that in and gaining something. So use it as a time to teach in a way that kind of blesses you and blesses your family. Look for the things that you can teach at the places that you're going. The cars around you, the signs, the atlas, stuff like that. Be prepared for the fighting and also the times of peace, and that you're going to celebrate together and picnic together and all that stuff. I don't know. I just think about it before you go and have fun. Have fun.
Cool. What about you, Virgil?
Some of the things I would say, and I've learned a lot of this stuff since I've had grandkids, but when the kids are real little, they really respond to the simplest things, like singing along songs with them. They're interested in you telling them stories about when you were a kid, or even a teenager, stuff like that. They're just spellbound. At least my grandkids are. And other simple things like I taught them what a fire hydrant was. We would count fire hydrants along the road. That sounds stupid, but they loved it. William, he got interested in the American flag. So we would just point out American flags along the way. And that's pretty easy down Savannah Highway, maybe not so easy on a road trip. And on the education angle of it, he learned the Pledge of Allegiance after getting interested in the flag. So they do learn, different things. Now, when my boys were little, I think the main thing that we did on a road trip for them to be entertained was we had these little cassette tapes, and there was a series of Christian tapes, and it was Salty.
Sing a Bible.
They would listen to those for hours on end. So that's a good thing. Even today, it's good to put some music on. They love listening to music.
Yeah, a modern one is Adventures in Odyssey, by the way. If y'all don't know about that, it's really good for little ones.
Yes, things like the iPads, and they can watch movies and stuff like that. And then as kids get older, you probably don't have to interact with them as much. You can just give them their headphones and their music, and let them listen to their music, but then when they want to take a break from that, it's a good time to have a family chat about various things that they might be interested in. Then they get to an age where they just tune you out, and it's just no hope.
Yeah, I think I even though I'm kind of hosting the thing, one thing that I just think is such a valuable thing to not waste is, and both y'all said it in different ways, is the teachable moments. The teachable moments while you're in a car. Both of my oldest, Ainsley and Andy, have both accepted Christ in the car through random conversations. And it's building, of course, off of raising them up, with that knowledge and conversation. And so, I encourage parents to always be, open to talking. Even if you don't feel equipped, talk to them about God. And on these road trips, it is prime opportunity for them to just be staring out the window. They see a mountain that they're not used to seeing, and they say, well, how did God make a mountain? And you can just go from there, and those teachable moments are just so in abundance in the car with our experience. And so what's that?
You have a captive audience.
And generally,
I'm sorry.
Generally, mom and dad are more relaxed in the car. Just generally, unless you've got some deadline that you've saved and you're working on in the car. I mean, generally, mom and dad are focused on driving in the car and the trip and the time I had usually with family or at a location or something. And so, I mean, people are generally more relaxed on a road trip, I think.
Oh, yeah, you're right.
More willing to be playful. I know that my kids sometimes are like, well, it's kind of fun, like in the car.
Yeah. Yeah. And one other thing that just like a practical piece of advice, everybody's got smartphones. Number one, parents, put your gadgets away when you're not driving for a little bit. I mean, it's not bad to pick it up and read a book or something or play a game or whatever, but don't be on it the entire time. But if you're looking for some apps for kids, the Bible app for kids, if you haven't checked it out, it is literally the best app for kids that I have found, and it's not just because I'm a minister and it talks about the Bible. It really is a cool app, and it really engages them in learning Bible stories, makes it fun. So parents, if you want to, you can download that Bible app for kids. Same company that puts out YouVersion, and it will be good for you in the long run. Last question to both y'all. In reflecting on your past trips with your kids, what is the most difficult thing that you have encountered? I guess we'll start with Virgil.
Most difficult thing. It's so simple, but when they're real little, it's the constant, are we there yet? And they say it, are we there yet? 1 minute later, are we there yet? And it's hard to explain to them. They have no concept of distance, and they just get edgy. And what's the word I'm looking for? They just get frustrated that they're not getting there. They just think it's going to be a short trip. That's the most difficult thing to me, trying to explain to them, this is going to be a long trip, you better get prepared. But you still hear, it's taking so long, golly, when are we going to get there?
Yeah, definitely. I think every parent, grandparent knows exactly what you're talking about there. Jennifer, what about you?
Well, I was thinking probably something maybe a little bit more on a sober note. I guess as they get older, somebody gets offended or gets their feelings hurt or says something really rude to someone else, and the atmosphere in the car changes.
Yeah.
And it's really, it takes usually a parent or a really grace-filled child. I mean, sometimes you have like someone in the family who's more of like a peacemaker or can lighten up a situation or whatever it takes. But my husband, thankfully, can lighten up a situation by throwing in a little humor generally. And my son is very gracious and quick to forgive. So, but it's all the men. Wait a minute. No, we girls are pretty awesome too, but our boys help us lighten it. And I guess, hey, who's not like that? The girls are usually more maybe dramatic, and so our boys can lighten us up, can kind of get the mood in the car back to something that is beneficial for all of us, because we're all in a closed space together. And again, we don't want to let that go on and on and on. And there be stuff that takes root, and it kind of spoils not only the car, but like then when you get there and everything. I mean, you want to try to look at what's happening, call it what it is, and the appropriate things happen. People say they're sorry, or mom and dad step in and say that was not necessary. You didn't need to say that, and let's do whatever your thing is, how you handle it in your household. But so I feel like that you asked us, I guess, a difficult thing, and that's probably the most difficult with 5 people in a small space. Somebody getting offended or treating someone not right. Yeah.
Definitely. Well, cool. I think this has been a good time. I definitely am taking notes over here. See, I actually literally am taking notes here for tomorrow. I'm going to do the dime. I'm gonna do the dime thing. I'm totally gonna get it. Oh yeah, that's gold right there. But
well, it's silver actually, but no, I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
Whatever.
Yeah, so it's silver. But yeah, we are glad that you tuned in. We hope that you gleaned something from this, and really, like I said at the beginning, we don't claim to have all the answers, but we definitely are better together. If you want to, we have a weekly podcast that we put out, and you can find that by searching James Island Family Life on iTunes, or just go on Facebook and join our page. That also is James Island Family Life. So you can search there and join. We post things throughout the week. We post these every month, and then the podcasts go out every single week, along with just some random resources as well. So get on there, be active on it, and we'd love for you to join us virtually. So, yeah, appreciate you guys joining. Yeah, no problem, and we'll see you guys next month.
Yeah.